At exactly 2:07 a.m., the city of Ironhaven was still glowing under neon lights and restless traffic. High above the skyline, Adrian Vale stepped out of a hidden elevator into a quiet underground chamber. The billionaire looked exhausted. His suit was torn, dust covered his boots, and the long night had clearly taken its toll. Waiting for him was Elias, the loyal butler who had served the Vale family for decades. He held a tablet and gave Adrian a calm but slightly amused look. "You may want to see this, sir." Adrian frowned. Nothing good ever came with that tone. He walked over and glanced at the screen. A live broadcast filled the display. A glamorous host stood in a sparkling ballroom, announcing a charity auction that would take place in 3 days. Wealthy elites, celebrities and investors would gather for one grand cause, raising money for animal rescue centers across Ironhaven. But the final item on the list made Adrian freeze. The grand prize, the host said with excitement, is an exclusive dinner date with Ironhaven's most eligible billionaire, Adrian Vale. Across the city in a cluttered apartment lit by flickering neon signs, a woman with bright hair and wild eyes leaned closer to the television. Luna Riot grinned slowly. "Oh, this is going to be fun." The next morning, the entire city of Ironhaven was buzzing with one topic. Every news channel, social feed and billboard talked about the same event, the charity auction at Aurora Grand Hall. Wealthy collectors and powerful investors were already preparing their bids. But everyone knew the real attraction of the night was not the paintings or luxury cars. It was the dinner date with Adrian Vale. Reporters joked that the price could easily pass $1 million. Some guests were already competing quietly behind the scenes. For them, the dinner was not just a date. It was access to one of the most powerful men in the city. Inside her messy apartment, Luna Riot sat cross-legged on the couch, staring at the TV with intense focus. $1 million, she muttered. She opened her wallet. 3 crumpled bills and a subway ticket stared back at her. "Okay," she sighed. "That's slightly below budget." But Luna's eyes slowly lit up with a dangerous idea. On the news screen, another story appeared. A financial executive named Victor Hallberg was under investigation for stealing pension money from thousands of workers. The authorities had not been able to prove anything yet. Luna leaned forward with a crooked smile. "Well, Victor," she said softly, grabbing her jacket and baseball bat, "looks like you're about to make a donation to charity." And just like that, Luna Riot stepped out into the neon streets of Ironhaven with one clear goal. She was going to win that date, no matter what it took. 3 nights later, Aurora Grand Hall looked like something out of a dream. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above marble floors. Elegant music floated through the air, while the richest people in Ironhaven filled the ballroom in designer suits and shimmering gowns. Cameras flashed as reporters covered the biggest charity event of the year. At the center of the room stood the auction stage. One by one, rare paintings, vintage cars, and luxury watches were sold for incredible prices. The crowd applauded politely after each bid. Then the host smiled and raised the microphone. "And now, the final item of the evening." The room instantly grew quiet. An exclusive dinner date with Ironhaven's most eligible billionaire, Adrian Vale. Adrian sat near the stage looking calm but slightly uncomfortable as dozens of eyes turned toward him. "Bidding starts at $200,000. Hands immediately went up across the room. 300,000. 500,000. 700,000. The numbers climbed higher and higher. Wealthy guests competed with confident smiles, raising their paddles like it was a simple game. Then suddenly the large ballroom doors slammed open. Every head turned. Standing in the doorway was Luna Riot, wearing a bright red jacket and a huge, fearless grin. She stepped into the silent room and shouted across the hall, $1 million. Gasps filled the ballroom as Luna twirled the bidding paddle in her hand like she owned the place. "Oh, relax," she said with a playful wink. "It's for charity." The auction host blinked in shock but quickly recovered. $1 million going once, going twice, sold. The crowd burst into confused applause. Some guests whispered to each other, trying to figure out who the wild woman in the red jacket was. Luna Riot simply gave a dramatic bow, clearly enjoying every second of the attention. Across the room, Adrian Vale studied her carefully. He expected many things tonight, but this was not one of them. Before anyone could ask questions, the ballroom lights suddenly flickered. The music stopped. A loud crashing sound echoed through the hall as a glass wall shattered near the back entrance. 2 strange figures stepped through the smoke. Their armored suits looked like something built for deep-sea diving, glowing with blue lights and covered in mechanical tubes. The taller one raised a strange weapon toward the ceiling. "Attention surface dwellers," he shouted. "This event is now under new management." Guests screamed and scattered as security rushed forward. The second criminal activated a device that released thick smoke across the ballroom floor. Within seconds, chaos filled the elegant hall. Through the confusion, the taller villain walked straight toward Adrian Vale. "You'll be coming with us," he said calmly. "The ocean demands compensation." Before anyone could react, the criminals grabbed Adrian and dragged him toward the shattered entrance. Across the room, Luna Riot watched the scene unfold. Her smile slowly disappeared. Oh no, she muttered, cracking her knuckles. No one kidnaps my date. The ballroom was still filled with smoke when the kidnappers escaped with Adrian Vale. Police sirens screamed outside Aurora Grand Hall, but by the time security reached the street, the armored criminals were already gone. Inside the hall, guests whispered in shock. Reporters rushed to broadcast the breaking news. But Luna Riot was not listening to any of them. She stood near the shattered glass wall, staring at the deep tire marks left on the pavement outside. A faint trail of water dripped from the kidnappers' heavy suits, forming a line across the marble floor. Luna crouched down and touched the wet surface with her finger. Sea gear. Heavy suits. Ocean speeches. She murmured. Her eyes slowly lifted toward the dark coastline visible in the distance. Ironhaven had only one place that matched all of those clues. The abandoned oceanarium near the harbor. A giant aquarium that closed years ago after a mysterious accident. Now it was nothing more than a rusting maze of empty tanks, broken glass tunnels, and flooded chambers. Perfect for people who wanted to hide near the sea. Luna stood up and grabbed her jacket tighter. Great, she sighed. First I had to win the date. Now I have to rescue it. Meanwhile, inside the silent oceanarium, Adrian Vale sat tied to a metal chair in the center of a dark control room. Water slowly dripped from the ceiling as blue lights reflected across the empty tanks. The two ocean-themed criminals stood nearby preparing strange machines. Soon the taller one said proudly, "The surface world will finally pay its debt to the ocean." Outside, the building footsteps echoed softly in the night. Luna Riot had arrived. The abandoned oceanarium was darker than Luna expected. The giant glass tunnels that once held colorful sea life were now cracked and empty. Water dripped slowly from broken pipes, and the salty air smelled like rust and old machinery. Luna moved carefully through the shadows, her footsteps light against the wet floor. Okay, she whispered to herself. Sneak in, grab the billionaire, leave with the date still scheduled. Easy. The moment she stepped into the main corridor, metal doors slammed shut behind her. Red emergency lights flashed across the hallway. Well, that's not ideal. From hidden vents, thick gas began to fill the tunnel. Luna quickly covered her mouth and ran forward, but the floor suddenly shifted. Mechanical traps activated beneath her feet, forcing her to jump across unstable metal platforms above a deep water tank. Somewhere above the control room, the two criminals watched through security screens. She found us faster than expected, Coral Fang said calmly. Doesn't matter, Tidebreaker replied. No one escapes this place. Meanwhile, Adrian Vale sat tied to the metal chair, weak but conscious. Through the cracked glass wall beside him, he could see Luna struggling through the traps in the corridor. For the first time, his calm expression showed concern. The gas thickened. The traps kept closing in. Luna coughed and leaned against the wall, her vision starting to blur. Okay, she muttered, trying to stay awake. This date is getting way too complicated. For a moment, everything around Luna Riot felt heavy and slow. The gas burned her eyes and the flashing red lights made the tunnel spin. The traps continued to shift under her feet, metal plates sliding open above the deep water tank below. Luna leaned against the wall, breathing slowly. Think, Luna. Think. Her eyes scanned the corridor. Pipes, control wires, old maintenance panels. Then she smiled. Okay, new plan. Instead of running forward, Luna jumped onto one of the moving platforms and grabbed a hanging cable from the ceiling. Sparks flew as she ripped it loose and slammed the exposed wires into a rusted control box on the wall. The entire tunnel exploded with sparks. Lights flickered. Alarms screamed. Inside the control room, the security screen suddenly went dark. What just happened? Coral Fang shouted. System failure, Tidebreaker growled. Back in the corridor, the gas vents shut down and the traps froze in place. Luna wiped sweat from her face and gave a satisfied grin. Maintenance training videos finally paid off. She kicked open the final door and stepped into the control room. The two armored criminals turned in surprise. Before they could react, Luna moved fast. She flipped over a metal table, knocked one villain into a console, and sent the other crashing into a stack of equipment. Seconds later, both criminals were lying unconscious on the floor. Luna dusted off her jacket and walked over to Adrian Vale. Sorry I'm late, she said while cutting the ropes. Adrian looked at her with quiet curiosity. You came back for me. Luna shrugged with a playful smile. Hey, I paid $1 million for this date. 3 days later, the city of Ironhaven finally returned to normal. News channels talked about the failed kidnapping, the mysterious rescue at the abandoned oceanarium, and the two strange criminals now sitting in police custody. But strangely, no one could clearly explain who saved Adrian Vale that night. Adrian, however, knew exactly who it was. On a quiet evening, a sleek black car stopped in front of a small but elegant rooftop restaurant overlooking the glowing skyline. Adrian stepped out first, adjusting his jacket as the cool night air moved through the city lights. A moment later, Luna Riot appeared beside him wearing a surprisingly simple black dress instead of her usual chaotic outfit. Well, she said with a playful grin, I didn't pay $1 million to cancel. The dinner was unexpected. Instead of chaos and trouble, the two spent hours talking, laughing, and sharing strange stories about the city. For a moment, Luna didn't feel like a criminal, and Adrian didn't feel like the most watched billionaire in Ironhaven. They were just two people enjoying the night. When the evening ended, they stood near the edge of the rooftop overlooking the endless lights of the city. Luna stepped closer, studying Adrian's face for a second. You know, she said softly, that was actually a pretty good date. Before Adrian could respond, Luna leaned forward and kissed him quickly. Then she stepped back with a mischievous smile and disappeared into the night. Later that same night, high above the city rooftops, Luna suddenly heard a voice behind her. Thank you for saving my friend. She turned around and saw the city's silent masked guardian standing in the shadows. Luna walked up to him, tilted her head and suddenly kissed him too. Then she laughed and skipped away across the rooftops. Not bad, she called out. But Adrian Vale kisses better. The masked hero stood there completely speechless under the moonlight. Comment 1 for the next part.